So last meeting we discussed about classifying conic sections. In classifying conic sections, we have a guide wherein if A is equal to C, or meaning coefficient of x squared is equal to the coefficient of y squared, then that equation forms a circle. Just like in our example number 2, that is 5x squared plus 5y squared plus 20x minus 10y minus 8 is equal to 0. So that is an example of an equation that forms a circle. It is because the coefficient of x squared and y squared, which is 5, are the same. So meaning our A is equal to C. Next, we have A is equal to 0. If A is equal to 0 or C is equal to 0 but not the same 0, then that equation forms a parabola. So meaning if our x squared does not exist or y squared but not the same 0, it forms a parabola. So let's see. So an example of parabola here is example 3 and 5. So in number 3, 5x squared plus 2x plus y minus 48 is equal to 0. So here, only A, wherein A is equal to 5, exists, but our C is equal to 0 because there is no y squared here. So 5x squared, yung A lang natin ang merong value which is 5. So this means number 3 or example number 3 forms a parabola. Same true with number 5. Notice that there is no y squared here, so our C is equal to 0. Only A exists. So these two examples form a parabola. Next, we have if A and C have different numbers but the same in sign, the equation forms an ellipse. So the example of an equation that forms an ellipse is example number 1. So that is x squared plus 4y squared is equal to 16. So we have different value or number of A and C. So in our x squared, our A here is equal to 1. And in our y squared, our C is equal to 4. So they have different numbers but they are both positive. So the same in sign, meaning that forms an ellipse. And lastly, if our A and C have different signs, that means the equation forms a hyperbola. So the example of an equation that forms a hyperbola here is example number 4, that is 25x squared minus 4y squared plus 50x minus 24y minus 31 is equal to 0 because they have different signs. So our A is 25, that is positive, and our C is negative 4. So the first thing that we should notice here is the existence of A and C, because if one of them is missing, or A is equal to 0 and C is equal to 0, automatically that equation forms a parabola. Next, we have to notice if A is equal to C, meaning not only in number but also in sign. Like if A is equal to positive 5, then C must also be positive 5 in order to form a circle. But if not, automatically that is a hyperbola. So lastly, we have to notice if their numbers or the values of A and C are different, then that equation forms an ellipse. So we also discussed about circle, the general form of the circle and its standard form. So in finding the center of the circle, it must be in the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Because the center is point hk and the radius is r. So if the given equation is in general form, we should convert this first into a standard form to find the center and the radius of the circle. And we can successfully find the center and the radius of a circle if we have to complete the square of the given equation. So using the completing the square method, because our aim here is to get the equation into the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. And in completing the square, we have the following steps. The first one, we should group the x parts together and the y parts together. For example, this x squared plus 8x are grouped together, and y squared plus 6y are also grouped together, and that is equal to 0. Now, the next step in completing the square is we have to get the half of 8x, so that is 4, and then we have to square it, so that is 16. So now we have x squared plus 8x plus 16. And same also with our y squared plus 6y. So we are going to get the half of 6, and then we are going to square that, so that is equal to 9. We are going to add 9 in y squared plus 6y. And remember, whatever we added on both parentheses will also be added on the right side of the equal sign. So instead of 0, we will add 16 and 9, so that is 25. After that, we are going to simplify the two parentheses. So x squared plus 8x plus 16 is also same as x plus 4 squared. And y squared plus 6y plus 9 is also the same as y plus 3 squared. And that is equal to 5 squared, or 25. Our equation now is in standard form. We can already determine the center and the radius of the circle. So the center of the circle is -4 and -3. Remember, class, that whatever the sign inside the parentheses will be changed to its opposite sign, like in x plus 4 squared. Instead of +4, that becomes -4. And same with y plus 3 squared. Instead of +3, that becomes -3. So that is now our point HK, or our center. And the radius is, since that is 5 squared, or 25, we are going to extract its square root, because we are only looking for r, or the radius. So the square root of 5 square, or 25, is 5 units. So that is now the center and the radius of the circle. Next, we are going to graph the circle. So since our center is -4 and -3, meaning we are going to count -4 in our x-axis and -3 units in our y-axis. So the pink dot there represents the center of the circle. And since that is 5 units, we are going to move 5 units from our dot, or from our center, to the right, to the left, up, and down. And then we are going to connect those dots to form a circle, wherein our center is -4 and -3, and our radius is 5 units. Remember, class, that there's no such as negative value of radius, because we are talking about the distance of the center to any point on the circle. So that must always be positive. So now, class, let us study ellipse. So unlike dun sa circle, class, itong ellipse is medyo tagilid yung plane figure to form an ellipse. Kapag sa circle, ang plane figure natin ay must be parallel with the directrix of the cone. So this is how to create an ellipse. Let us first familiarize ourselves with these following terms. So we have vertices and axis, major axis, vertex, co-vertex, and minor axis. So when we say major axis, this is the segment that contains both the foci and has its endpoints on the ellipse. Next, we have also the center. So the center is the midpoint of the major axis of the ellipse. Also the vertices. So these are at the intersection of the major axis and the ellipse. And the co-vertices are at the intersection of the minor axis and the ellipse. Or ito yung mga dulo-dulo nila. Yung vertices meaning vertex ng major axis, and yung co-vertex is yung vertex ng minor axis. So let us move on to the standard form equation of an ellipse. So the standard form of the equation, if our ellipse is horizontal, meaning we have the major axis horizontally, is x squared all over a squared plus y squared all over b squared is equal to 1, wherein our a is greater than b. For example, that is x squared all over 2 squared plus y squared all over 1 squared is equal to 1. So our a here, which is 2, is greater than our b, which is 1. This equation forms an ellipse that is horizontal. Positive and negative 2 in our x-axis, and our y is 0, is positive and negative 1 in our y-axis. And with that class, we can form an ellipse that is horizontal. And in the vertical or major axis, we have our major axis vertically. So the standard equation for that is x squared all over b squared plus y squared all over a squared is equal to 1, wherein our a is greater than b. So if you notice, class, nasa baba ng x squared natin kapag horizontal major axis is a squared. Pero kapag vertical major axis, ang nasa baba ng x squared natin is b squared. Yung nasa baba ng y squared natin is b squared kapag horizontal major axis, while yung nasa baba ng y squared natin is a squared if that is vertical major axis. So example here is x squared all over 1 squared plus y squared all over 2 squared is equal to 1. Yung b natin is 1 squared. Still, that is under x squared. So we have positive and negative 1 under x-axis, and under y-axis we have positive and negative 2. So we can form a vertical major axis ellipse. So as you can see in the graph of a horizontally major axis ellipse, if we are going to drag its vertex, so as you can see, class, the value of a, the value of our a squared is affected. So the value of our a and b shows the shape of the ellipse. And so with our minor axis. So let's try this. We have a practice problem here, class. So number 1, can you determine the values of a and b for the equation of the ellipse pictured in the graph below? The graph here says that our major axis, the vertex of our major axis is 3, and the vertex of our minor axis is negative 2 and 2. And we noticed also that the vertices in our minor axis or under x-axis is shorter than our vertices in our y-axis. That is why it is a vertical ellipse. The value for the question mark under x squared, that is 2. And in our y squared, that is equal to 3. So let's see. Okay, so that is 2 squared and 3 squared. So next we have the same problem. So since our graph in y-axis, that is 3, and in our x-axis, that is 1, so that must be x squared all over 1 squared plus y squared all over 3 squared is equal to 1. In problem 3, we have the graph of horizontally major ellipse. We have 3 units from the origin in our major axis. So that must be x squared all over 3 squared plus y squared all over, in our minor axis, we have 2 units. So that must be 2 squared. Let's see. Okay. So let's take this another example. So can you graph the equation of the ellipse below and find the values of a and b? So we have here x squared all over 2 squared plus y squared all over 5 squared is equal to 1. And if we are going to graph that, since 2 units is in our x-axis, we have -2 and 2, and we have 5 units in our y-axis, so that is -5 and 5. So we form a vertical major axis ellipse. Can you graph the equation of the ellipse below? What are these values of a and b? So we notice that our denominators are in perfect squares. So x squared all over 25 plus y squared all over 9 is equal to 1. So we must convert 25 in square form. And so with 9, x squared all over 5 squared plus y squared all over 3 squared is equal to 1. This is the graph of the ellipse. Lastly, determine the values of a and b as well as what the graph of the ellipse with the equation shown below. So we have x squared all over 1 plus y squared all over 36 equal to 1. Still, 1 is a perfect square and 36 as well. So that must be x squared all over 1 squared plus y squared all over 6 squared is equal to 1. So in our x-axis, we have 1 unit from 0, or our origin, and 6 units in our y-axis from the origin. So that would be all for ellipse at center 0, 0.